And we are live. Hello, and welcome to another Do As We Do Live, where we know being an unprepared caregiver is the caregiver's worst enemy. We believe it starting the conversation with your family early about it's not about if you die, but it's about if you live. So we're on a mission here to break that chain of being an unprepared caregiver. I am that Kimberly, and before I introduce you to my friend and our special guest, I just want to let everyone know we are live on Do As We Do's Facebook page, as well as our Do As We Do YouTube channel and my LinkedIn. You can see right there. Thanks to our backstage producer for throwing that up for us. And as always, our goal is to bring value every week. So if you have a question, please leave it in the comments. We will definitely answer it either live or shortly after. And while you're there, please like and subscribe to our channels just to keep updated. Last but not least, we want to make sure that everybody understands that we are doing this for all those unpaid caregivers out there in the world, and everybody knows somebody who's a caregiver. That's your colleague that you work with, your friend, somebody you go to school with, your neighbor that's caring for a loved one while they're living and in their day-to-day life. They're handling someone else's life, their loved one. So if you know someone, share this with them, share this episode, tell them about Do As We Do, because that's why we're here. A quick little update also on the Caregiver Relief Fund, which again, thank you all very much for joining us and helping us with that. We're up to about $7,000, and we do have a live application on doaswedo.org. So the caregivers can go there and apply. We are very grateful for everyone that has donated. So if you do need assistance, please go there and fill an application. And we would like to thank Approved Shield and Spherix for getting that up for us. They are doing an amazing job to handle that for us. So with all that said, I'm sure I think I didn't miss anything. I hope I didn't miss anything. But anyways, if I did, I'll figure it out. So I'm excited to welcome my friend and my mentor and a fellow caregiver, Mrs. Anne. I never get your last name correctly. Sadovsky. I feel like I did it better after 15 years, hopefully.
Yeah. You did it, girl.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Anne, for joining me here today. I really appreciate you.
You bet.
So tell the audience just a little high level before we jump into your caregiving story about who you are and where you're from.
All right. It's a long story because I've gotten up in years here. I got a lot of things to tell. So I have been in multifamily housing for 52 years. I'd like to tell you I started when I was 7, but I was a little older than that. And that's how Kimberly and I connected through the years. I have been an educator in that field and still am today, specializing a great deal in fair housing and what people's rights are and what the property's rights are. And even more importantly, I do a lot of work with people based on their people skills. You know, today during this virus thing, I mean, I've written a whole new program called People Are Stressed, People Are Angry, How to Keep Your Cool and How to Keep Your Job and How to Keep Your Customers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So you have those people skills.
I do. I hope. I hope. So I was honored that Kimberly asked me. I've been on one time before, quite a year more ago, whatever, but I've had changes in my caregiving responsibilities since then. So, and as I think about it, I have reached an age and a point where I'm beginning to think about what happens if I became incapacitated, not just die, but, and it's a big concern for me because my husband is 20 years younger than I am. Wow. And don't worry, it's not a fling. We've been together for 35 years. So, but I have great concerns for him ending up in the position of
Mhm.
being a caregiver, and I don't want to be a burden. Nobody wants to be a burden.
Yeah.
So, but I want to kind of go back in history instead of talking about me now. My
Yeah.
experience has been I was raised by my grandparents in McKinney, Texas.
Mhm.
And when my grandmother died, my grandfather was still in the house, and the house is still there. And I sold it for $12,000 in
Oh.
1977 so I could put him in a safer place because he kept setting the house on fire and
Mhm.
burning the kitchen.
How old was he at this time?
He was born in 1888.
Wow.
So in 1977, I mean, he lived to be 90.
Okay.
So,
This is
but
latter
anyway,
years.
so the last 10 years of his life,
Okay.
he was there for, I mean, he wasn't there, but he was on his own. My grandmother had passed away.
Mhm.
And I kept saying, I went every Saturday. I drove to McKinney every Saturday. I cut his hair. We went to the grocery store. We went to his favorite sandwich shop where he made a funny joke about his chicken salad sandwich, but he called it chicken S salad because he thought that was funny. And he was a
I think
Scorpio.
it's
He was a
funny.
Scorpio like me. What can I tell you? All right.
Great sense of humor.
Yeah, great. Well, I hope. So um, finally, he really did. He had a pole lamp with hot bullet lamps off of it. It was way back then, and he had older curtains, and he got in his recliner, and he wanted to see out, so he threw one of the curtains over the hot thing, and it set on fire.
Yeah.
So he doesn't tell me. I go up the next Saturday, and I walk in, and I said, "Papa, what burned?" Nothing burned. I said, okay. So then I went out on the back porch for something, and there were little burned pieces of fabric. And I said, Papa, what is this? He said, well, come on, I'll show you. So we went into the knotty pine den, and he showed me where it scorched the wall. And he said to me,
Oh.
you'd never know I had arthritis by the way I ran with that bucket of water. So cute. And he
Oh.
put the fire out. So I said, this is it. This is it.
Mhm.
You're going to have to give up this house and have more people around you and more safety. I'd like for you to come and live with me. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that to you. And I said, he was my number one soulmate. It's not
Uh-huh.
doing it to me. I would love to have you. And he said, I will live near you, but I don't want to
Live with you.
encroach on your lifestyle.
How
So
did he wait a minute, how long did it take? How many times you asking him did that before he
not
agreed?
many, not
Okay.
the fire scared him.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
fire scared him.
Well, yeah.
So I found a lovely, it wasn't so much a nursing home, but a facility where people lived who weren't able to take care of themselves, but it was
Mhm.
not medical, it
Yeah.
was.
Mhm.
So I still went every Saturday, and we played dominoes, and we had a great old time. And he lived there, 2 or 3 years. I would bring him to my house for Thanksgiving, and he would stay half an hour and said, he was blind, almost
Mhm.
completely blind. And he said, I need to go back because I
Huh?
can't find my way around.
Aw.
So long story short, he lived to be 90,
Mhm.
and he was a great deal of joy in my life. And I miss him still today, but I learned a lot about what it meant to to have a family member who was visually impaired, who had bad arthritis, and who was 90 years old.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my first experience. And then years later, my mom living in California, and I have 3 sisters there and my brother, and she got Parkinson's. And my sister had divorced and moved in with mom.
Mhm.
And my sister, who's 5 times more gregarious, outgoing, outspoken, high energy than I am,
5
and
times.
a salesperson,
Uh-huh.
big personality, trying to run her marketing business out of the house with mother
Oh.
ringing the bell all the time, ringing
Yeah.
the bell. I said, Mia, take the bell away from her. But anyway, finally, a year went by, and Mia got the other sisters to stay at the house with mom, and she came here to visit me right
Mhm.
here in my office, sitting on the sofa. She got big tears in her eyes, and she said, I am losing my fondness for our mother.
Mhm.
And I said,
Ah.
That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
I got a plane ticket. I went home with her. I put her in the car. We drove and visited like 5 or 6 different facilities so we could find if it smelled like Lysol, she was having nothing to do with it, and I certainly agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. So
let me hold on real fast. So let me back up. Did you have a conversation with Mia and your other sister before, it got to the point where, Mia couldn't like just, that they were at odds, or was it just kind of assumed like
and
Mia
it was,
just,
I mean, they weren't miserably at odds. It was just Mia had no life anymore. And it was, I mean, we had to put a hospital bed in her room because we were worried about one night in the night, Mia was sleeping across the hall. She gets out of that bed, opens a very heavy wood front door, goes down 3 brick steps, starts down a sidewalk that went deep down to the garage, fell over into the flower bed. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, the neighbor called Mia and said, Tranny is calling for you. And she said, how would you hear her? I don't hear her. He said, Mia, she's outside. Well, of course, she just panicked. So she dashed out front, and Mom had been digging in the dirt trying to cover herself up because she was cold, called an ambulance. And it, so
events like that, really.
Yeah. But until it got to the point that she sat here and admitted that it was breaking her. And it was breaking her emotionally, physically. It was breaking her. So we did have the talk we have a brother in Virginia, and there are 3 girls out there and a brother out there, and we all talked. And I just said, she can't do it anymore. We're not all where we can help her. And she's going to have some help. And she is the most gregarious of all of us, and she didn't have a life anymore. So long story short, we found Ave Maria. And it was a Catholic facility. We are not Catholic, but it was, and they let other people live there. But a lot of the nuns and priests retired and lived in that facility.
Oh, okay.
So she became more mentally dysfunctional, and she had a vivid imagination. She entertained us with things like, well, I'm so glad you're here because I was waiting to tell you that I got married last night. And I said, oh, you did? And Mia starts to argue with her. No, now, Mom. And I went,
yeah.
I said, Mom, who did you marry? She said, I had to ask the preacher that same question. I didn't know his name. So we laughed. We had a laugh. Then the next time I went, she said, well, the hammering and sawing is keeping me awake. And I said, what is that? And she said, they're remodeling the room next door to my room. And I said, well, we'll talk to them and see if they can be a little quieter. She said, well, the president is coming to live in that room. And Mia starts, now, I said, don't. So finally, with the administrator, we sat down with Mia and said, don't argue with her.
Yeah.
Because it frustrates her and it gets her upset. And you just go along. She's not going to know the difference anyway. So, and
it frustrates both of them, right?
Yeah. And it's really tough when they are both physically and mentally incapacitated. She reached the point where we had to put her in the wheelchair, and she couldn't walk on the walker anymore. And so we learned a lot. My brother, I'm the oldest, then my brother, who's the 4-star admiral, retired, he's already made his plans. He says he's not going to live like that. And he scares me because he said he's got his bottles of pills and he's got his antique Corvette in the barn, and he's going to go upstairs and start that Corvette, let the fumes rise and take the pills. And I said, please don't do that to us. Please. No. But he's horrified and terrified of being incapacitated. So
does your brother know that there is self-suicide in other states that's legal?
Yeah, okay. He does.
Did you tell him it would make you all feel so much better if that's the route you want to go?
Yeah, and believe me, I mean, we've as we get older, we've looked at that. I mean, I just had my 79th birthday.
Yes,
and I've never. Well, thank you. I've never felt old. I don't feel old now. My body feels maybe 59, My brain and my heart feel 59. If only my body looked like I was 59, I'd be so happy.
You look
So,
awesome.
well, thank you. So, those were my first two experiences. And then I had shared with Kimberly, for the rest of you, that I wanted to talk about. Randy and I have embarked on a caregiving situation to a non-relative. Randy's mom passed away. My mom passed in 2011. I guess Trudy's been gone since 2014, 6 years or so ago. And she went fairly abruptly. She was at home and then straight to the hospital where she died. But there's a lady in our life who was the secretary in our church through several ministers and was there about 30 years. And I've been there myself since the mid 70s. So I have known her forever. She is British. She was never married. Her only living relative is her sister in London. And she was very independent and drove, and she owned a condo here in Dallas. And finally, we ended up with a new minister who decided that they needed to cut payroll, and they decided to lay her off or let her go. And she's my age. So this was less than 10 years ago.
Wow.
And she had a friend in Albuquerque, and she packed up, sold her condo, shipped her piano and all of her beautiful things and her artwork. She's a very classy lady, and moved to Albuquerque and moved into an apartment that was the community was owned by a lady friend, and who wanted her to come and to live there near her. They'd been friends since they were young here in Dallas, and the lady moved out. Anyway, long story short, she got a job as a receptionist for a realtor group several days a week, whatever. And on a Saturday morning, she didn't show up for work. And they knew that never happened. And so by 10 o'clock, they were beginning to panic, and they called the friend, and the friend went to her apartment. And she was lying in the floor, bleeding from her head. She had been beaten in the head with a hammer and sexually assaulted. And as the investigation started, they found it was a man she met through the apartment community some way. And he was very suave, and he came and had tea with her, and he began to convince her that they were going to do a business together. And she wrote him checks. And that's another thing with people who are aging, and they don't, I mean, the phone scams and all of that are bad enough,
That's a whole other, that could be a whole other conversation. I get so frustrated when people call my mom.
Absolutely. So we didn't know that she would live, and a few people from the church who weren't working as I was rushed out, and she survived. He got to her for like $25,000. And remember, she's not a wealthy woman. She just that was her savings. And when she said to him, "I want to go see the building that you're building. I want to see our business," or whatever. And that's when he attacked her, when she told him, no more money until you. So they figured it out. He was arrested. She is still frightened. She's frightened if anybody comes to the door where she lives close to us now, in a retirement center type place. She's frightened to answer her phone because she says he knows I can still testify against him.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, in the meantime, we got her here, and she has come 1,000,000 miles. She does walk. She got her cat back from a friend that was keeping Peter. She lives in a tiny, small, little, tiny kitchenette kind of a place. It's not a medical facility, again, although they have a couple of nurses on duty, but it's where they go to the dining room, they eat, they have their own quarters.
Yeah.
So the lasting result, Kimberly, is she has a speech impediment. So she's embarrassed because she can't make herself clear. So she doesn't go to the dining room. She's lonely. She's by herself all the time, but she doesn't want to go and stumble with her words.
What about going back to church?
We bring her occasionally, of course, now COVID, but we, especially for events, musical things, whatever. So another friend and I we're taking her at least twice a month to lunch. And we'd go get her and take her to her favorite places. And of course, now with COVID, she can't even leave her room now.
Wow.
They're on lockdown and have been since March.
Yeah.
So they bring food to her, and she doesn't like the food. And that, I mean, we go through all the things that people do go through with this. So, but what little money she may still have, she has a money manager that was also in the financial part of our church for years. And I don't know what her situation is. I don't ask, but we don't let her pay for anything. So a couple of years ago, and especially since COVID more, I would say to her, what do you need? Because before COVID, she was able to get in the van and go with a lot of the people from the nursing home, Phil's facility, to Walmart.
Yeah.
She could buy her own supplies and get Peter's potty thing, whatever. I've never had a cat. Litter. I've never had a cat. Kitty litter. So when COVID came along, they can't take them anymore.
Yeah.
So it dawned on me, and I called her and I said, Erica, what are you doing for supplies for Peter and all that? She said, it's really a struggle, and I don't know what I'm going to do because nobody's going. Or I said, so every week she can email, and she emails me her shopping list, and my precious Randy goes to the PetSmart and to Costco and to the grocery store. And on Saturday or Sunday, he delivers to the door there. And because he can't go in, we can't go see her. And in the midst of all of it, so we're taking care. And she keeps saying, I want to give you money. And we keep saying, no, we have no one else.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest person in my family now. We have no one older that we need to be taking care of family wise.
Yeah.
And so she's become our family, and we love to help her. And we surprise her with a bouquet of flowers or a box of chocolates from her over and above her list. She's so appreciative, and she sends lovely emails. And so lo and behold, 3 days ago, she got up sometime in the night to go to the ladies' room, to the potty room, and she tripped over the cat and fell on her right wrist. She's right-handed, and shattered her wrist. So they ended up taking her to Medical City in the middle of the night and bringing her back at 5 o'clock in the morning. We were praying that she doesn't have to have surgery. Peter is fine because Peter is he's her whole life. He's her companion,
Means a whole lot. Yeah.
You bet. So, and I keep saying to her, I wish I could come and see you. They won't let me in. Even when
Are you FaceTiming with her at all?
She's not figured it out yet, but I'm going to see if somebody in the office there at the Windsor can come and help her do that, so we can see each other. So, but for us, it's not a burden. We feel very honored to be able to help with Erica. She's a wonderful human being, and we love her.
Well, more like that is awesome that you're doing that for people, somebody like you said that's not a family relative, but you can do it. You are the oldest. If more people thought along those lines, and I know you come from a place of being the ex-caregiver, right? What would you tell people, knowing your experience from, because your experience from your grandfather to your mother, and even now to Erica, you said was her name? Like those 3 different scenarios, what advice would you give someone that, is going through something the same?
Number one, if you don't have somebody you're helping, you should find somebody to help. It does our heart so much good. We feel blessed to be able, not just financially, but just support and loving and caring and calling and checking and taking little gifts when we could go. We didn't have anybody, until this happened to Erica. And so there may be many of you who are wondering, what can you be doing for people, especially during COVID, that need help?
Yeah.
So, we live in a 43 lot circular neighborhood, and all of our neighbors are active. They're older,
Mhm.
Very few younger people live in the neighborhood. Randy's my husband's probably the youngest guy in the neighborhood. So, but we, we check on each other. We see each other when we're out walking, but nobody is in need in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
So you may be rocking along with your life and feeling burdened by COVID and worried about how can we get groceries? When are we going to get groceries? And we have Erica that we learned had no toilet paper, no paper towels. She ran out of deodorant. She's very specific on what kind of coffee creamer. She gives us a very specific list, and we try to fulfill it. And
Yeah.
she's not bossy. And if
Yeah.
we take it that's not exactly what she wanted, she says, please next time get this brand.
Yeah.
So we appreciate her for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess number one is
Find
if
somebody.
you're not helping somebody right now, find somebody that needs help. That's important. And be consistent. I think that's the number one thing with us is we don't miss checking on her every week.
Yeah.
And we don't miss delivering to her and being consistent. She knows that she can count on us.
Yeah.
And she keeps trying to say, I want to pay. I'm out of my vitamins. They're a little expensive and I'd like to pay. And I said, Erica, just send me the name of the vitamins you've been taking because I don't know exactly what it is. And we're going to pick up the vitamins. So there's always somebody worse off than we are.
Absolutely. What about with you and Randy, as you said, you're getting older? What conversations, if any, have you had, with your family members, or with what conversations you, Randy, have had about you not wanting to be a burden? Not that we ever, we hate to use that word, but when we don't prepare, that's what happens to our loved ones.
So here is my challenge. My husband thinks I'm going to live forever and stay this young forever. So when I try to talk to him about this, he doesn't want to hear it, So, but we do talk about it, and I try to, make sure that he knows and prepare. I worry about what will happen to him when I'm gone.
Yeah.
And he very politely reminds me that it's totally irrelevant what I think about that because I'm not going to be here to observe. So he's, he's young.
But in all seriously, like from the past, several years of me doing this, and talking to especially couples, that somebody has passed, not even like the hardest times were when they were alive and having to be that caregiver because it wears on, the individual. And like, I feel you and Randy, just because I know you guys personally, that your situation might be a little bit different, but if you're 100% incapacitated and you no longer are the vibrant, bubbly person that we all know and love, it definitely wears on the person closest to you, whether it's a spouse, a sibling, parent, whatever it is. But you both are very positive people, right? At the same time. So logically, if you guys could have that conversation, what do you think you could propose to him about you still being alive? And, if you needed some extra help to come in, could you propose anything to him?
No, he just didn't want to talk about it. He doesn't accept the fact that I'm going to be gone before he is, and I'm going to probably go through some of those years. I hope that I don't, the good news for me is I have no illnesses, maybe a little arthritis, but I don't have blood pressure. I don't have diabetes.
You live a very clean life.
We live a clean, healthy, we eat healthy. And the guy pumps me with so many vitamins, I don't have room for food because he's going to keep me going. So, but I've laughed and said to him, I know you don't want to talk about this, but I want you to know that I want you to find somebody to spend the rest of your years with. He said, I don't want to talk about that. Well, I know you don't. I said, but I'm looking because I'm going to pick you out a wife before I go.
Well, it's not even about if you die. I'm worried about if you live. Like poor Randy, like I'll be the first one to show up and like, okay, let's create a plan, Randy, because you didn't want to talk to Anne about this. I'm witness. We got you on video. I will be happy to come and say, let me give you a break, because that's the biggest. What people are not thinking about. It's not about when you die. It's about you living
Yeah.
the last 10 years of your life, the last 2 years of everybody's life, we're all going to need help getting out of the
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how healthy you are. There's studies have shown, and if you're not prepared and you haven't had that conversation with,
Yeah.
Randy and or your sisters, your
And
brother.
with him this much younger, he may still be working.
Yeah.
So, he is driven.
Hmm.
He's at the church volunteering and working and up there at night locking the doors after everybody leaves, Nana, because there's still little things going on up there.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the facilities guy. So if the air conditioner goes off or if there's a leak, everybody calls Randy. And then he has a full-time job.
Yeah.
So his career is consuming. And
Hmm.
I don't want him to be in the position that Mia was in
Yeah.
and saying, I'm trying to work and this is wearing me out. So he's smart. He is loving and kind and good, and he wants to be everything for me, but he's smart. He
Yeah.
will know when the time comes when he has to do something.
Good.
So
Good. Well, that makes me feel better, but just know you can always count on me. I'd be happy to come and assist, because the first couple of years was very confusing, for is really confusing for any caregiver, I feel. And I don't even know what it's going to be like for, you know, a spouse. I'm not joking when I tell people that I want to go and move to a suicide state, because I really, when that time comes, I don't want anybody to have to care for me, and I want my life insurance policy to stay intact. So I'd really
yeah,
like,
yeah,
to do it legally, but
yeah,
it becomes so hard. And I know at the point that it gets where somebody else has to make that decision, they're thinking with their heart. They're not thinking,
that's right.
with their head and
So
what.
a mention of that, I have everything set up in my, we both have wheels, we have everything set up. And on the at like end of life in the hospital, they're trying to resuscitate. I have a do not resuscitate
Living
DNR.
will? Do you have a living will
I
as
have
well?
a living will. I have everything, and I assigned the task. If somebody has to pull the plug or say it's over, I know he couldn't do it. So I have two granddaughters
Awesome.
that are both tough little broads, business women. And they have said, I said, do not chicken out on me. This is
Mhm.
what I want. And I expect you to be there for Randy and to say it's over.
That's awesome.
So,
That's awesome. I I get it. My best friend had to tell me that I was not going to be on her, one of those people to pull the plug, because she feels like, because I'm so close to her family,
yeah,
that and her sisters, that I would get too much grief, and if heaven forbid her mom was still alive, that I definitely would not be able to go against.
yeah,
My heart just wouldn't be able to take it. So, and neither would her husband. So she's finding somebody outside of the
yeah,
realm that
yeah,
none of her family knows, right? Like, it's
yeah,
the smart way to
yeah,
go, because
yeah,
you need somebody that's tough, that will be able to stand up next to the family members. But before that even happens, I encourage you guys and your grandchildren to talk to their parents about what happens, because your grandchildren, if they're, no matter what age they are, if something happens to them, then what happens, right? And they live. It's really not about when we die. This is the doaswedo.org is all about if we live, because people
yeah,
don't understand
yeah,
that we're living longer, that, since 2011, every single day, 10,000 people turn 65. So there's an influx now, right? On top of that, 43 plus million just in the United States are unpaid caregivers, people who are working their daytime jobs and caring for a loved one. And then 25% of that sector are women and millennials. So they're juggling their own lives and then having to care for a sibling, a family member, you name it, spouse, parent. So
as long as I've lived and been in the business world and paid attention to what's going on in the world, we have had a sandwich generation.
mm,
And that is the person that is both taking care of their children and even their children's children and their parents.
yep.
So, and that's really a tough one when you're trying to juggle so many lives.
Hmm.
So it's you're
And it's only increasing, because, like I said, that boom has boomed. The boomers have boomed, And now your sandwich generation, as the millennials, they're definitely, it's and our cost of health insurance is not going down, it's only going up. So if we're not having the conversations earlier in their 20s or 30s, then they're really going to be clueless as to what to do, right? I just don't want any of my family or friends, children especially, to
Mhm.
worry about the what if, what am I supposed to do if, if someone, my parent or my spouse, something happens to them and they live, what am I going to do now, right? Because that is one of the most confusing
I
times.
found a book. The guy signed books for us at our church, and
Hmm.
it's I'll have to find it and let you know what the name of it is. Uh, Things I Want You to Know is kind of the title.
Hmm.
And you sit down with your loved one and you go through and you fill in the blanks in the
Yeah,
pages for each other. And
great.
I sent it to my sister,
That's
she's not
awesome.
that, so that I think it's such a relief if we
Hmm.
are prepared and we can help prepare our loved ones.
Absolutely.
So,
100%. That's the best way to put it. That is truly love, right? When
yeah,
you're
it
when you're
is.
helping
It is. Yeah.
folks. So, and I really, really appreciate you. Elaine says, oh, wait, Elaine says you're looking great, Anne. So she's from the DC area. Diana says, sends a heart, says thank you. Thank
Good.
you all, everyone, for joining us. And if folks want to get in touch with you, please let them know how they can connect with you. Are you?
Pretty simple. Anne at AnneSadovsky.com. So if you
That's
can get the E on the Anne and spell Sadovsky, and Anne at AnneSadovsky.com.
if you Google her name, she comes up. Easy
Yes, I do.
peasy. Yes, you
Yes, I
do.
do.
You've been around. Just
Yes,
Google
I
her
do.
name. But you're also on Facebook and LinkedIn, any other social media sites?
No, those are my primaries.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us. The Do As We Do Foundation, we definitely are excited that there are people out that are willing to share their story. We've been bringing content to folks for the past 6 months. We are planning in January to change up the day, but we're not quite sure. But if this episode, anything that Anne talked about was valuable, you found value in it, please share it with someone that you know needs to hear it, because we are definitely not going anywhere. We're here to support and empower caregivers, especially those that are not there yet and some that are new caregivers, but we just don't want anybody to feel helpless and in need. So we do have the doaswedo.org website where you can go and you can volunteer, you can donate services or money, and also apply for the fund of that we're raising or that we have raised. Again, thank you to everybody who participated in our last campaign. And big thank you to our sponsors. Let me throw up this. And don't be surprised, don't be shocked when you don't see your face here in a second.
It's all
I just
right.
like to
I'm good. I'm good. I've looked at myself enough.
so just so that everybody sees I'm a soap addict, Approved Shields, Spherex, Salon D, Hustle Aesthetics, Short Productions, Rich B, Blue Jay Nutra, and AK Realty. It definitely, everything you do for us, we really appreciate you so much. And I think that's everything. Don't forget, it takes a village to bring us into this world, and it's going to take a village to take us out. So please, please do as we do, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, Kimberly. Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Bye.
joining us.